You think your wood stove is working hard, but most of your heat is literally running away up the chimney right now, disappearing into cold air like a survival mistake you don't notice until the room goes numb. Here's the thing nobody tells you. A wood stove doesn't fail because it's weak, it fails because of settings, airflow, and tiny physics choices that quietly decide whether you're warming your shelter or heating the sky. And once you understand what fire actually wants, oxygen, turbulence, and time, you stop feeding the stove like a campfire and start running it like a controlled engine. First, you need to understand that fire isn't just burning wood, it's burning gases. When wood heats up, it releases invisible fuel called volatile compounds, and if your air control is wide open like you're trying to launch a rocket, those gases escape before they finish combusting. That means less heat in the room and more creosote in the chimney. Basically a slow invitation for a future chimney fire. The trick is counterintuitive. You start the fire hot with plenty of air, then gradually reduce the intake until the flames slow but don't die. You're looking for active, lazy flames that roll instead of roar. That slower burn forces the gases to ignite inside the stove instead of escaping. And suddenly, the same pile of wood lasts longer while producing deeper, steadier heat. It feels wrong at first because humans equate big flames with warmth, but real efficiency comes from controlled combustion, not chaos. Now let's talk about the mistake that quietly cuts your heat output in half: burning wet wood. If your logs hiss, steam, or leave black glass on the stove window, you're wasting energy boiling water instead of heating your space. Fresh wood can hold over 40% moisture, and every drop of that water steals heat through evaporation. Basic thermodynamics turning your survival fuel into a humidifier. Properly seasoned wood sits under cover for at least a year, sometimes two, until it sounds hollow when knocked together. Dry wood ignites faster, burns hotter, and allows secondary combustion systems to actually work the way engineers designed them. When you switch to dry fuel, the difference feels like upgrading the entire stove without buying anything new, and the air inside your shelter shifts from smoky to sharp and clean. Then there's the airflow myth that traps a lot of people. They keep opening the door to check the fire. Every time you crack that door, you dump a wave of cold oxygen into the chamber and disrupt the burn cycle. Think of it like opening an oven every minute and wondering why dinner takes forever. Modern wood stoves are designed to run with a stable draft. Air enters through specific channels, travels across the firebox, and feeds combustion in layers. When you interrupt that pattern, you cool the fire and send heat straight up the flue. Instead, learn to read the stove through sound and flame color. A steady, low roar and bright secondary flames near the top of the chamber tell you the gases are burning efficiently. That's not just comfort, that's chemistry happening correctly. And here's a survival detail most manuals barely mention. Your stove needs a small bed of ash to reach peak efficiency. People obsessively clean out every bit of residue, thinking they're being tidy, but that thin layer of ash acts like insulation, protecting the firebox floor and reflecting heat back into the coals. Without it, fresh logs sit on cold metal and struggle to ignite evenly. You want about an inch of ash, not a mountain, just enough to cradle embers so new wood lights faster and burns more completely. In a blackout or cold weather emergency, this small habit reduces how often you need to restart the fire, which means less wasted fuel and less exposure to freezing air while you fumble with matches. Another overlooked factor is heat movement. A wood stove can produce intense localized heat while the rest of the room stays stubbornly cold, and people assume they need more fire when what they actually need is better circulation. Heat rises, piles up near the ceiling, and creates temperature layers like invisible shelves. Instead of blasting the stove hotter, place a small fan low on the floor across the room, pointing toward the stove, not away from it. That pushes cooler air into the hot zone, forcing warm air to spread outward in a convection loop. It feels backwards. You're moving cold air, but physics rewards you with a more even temperature and less wood burned over time. Now let's talk about the flue, the silent highway where your heat escapes. If your chimney draft is too strong, the stove behaves like a vacuum cleaner sucking warmth outside. Windy nights can make this worse, turning a good fire into a fast-burning fuel drain. A properly adjusted damper or air control slows that draft just enough to keep heat in the firebox longer. You don't want smoke backing up, that's dangerous, but you also don't want flames racing like they're late for something. The sweet spot is a steady, controlled burn where smoke leaving the chimney is thin or nearly invisible, a sign that combustion is complete rather than wasteful. And here's where survival thinking really changes the game. Thermal mass. The stove itself heats quickly but cools fast once the fire fades, which means temperature swings that feel brutal during long winter nights. Surrounding the stove with dense materials like brick, stone, or even containers of water absorbs excess heat and releases it slowly over hours. It's the same principle ancient masonry heaters used centuries ago. Store heat when the fire is strong so you're not freezing when the flames die down. Even rearranging furniture to avoid blocking radiant heat can noticeably increase how warm your space feels without burning extra fuel. Finally, watch your loading pattern. Randomly tossing logs into the firebox creates uneven airflow and pockets of incomplete combustion. Stacking wood front to back or in a tight east-west configuration changes how flames travel, often extending burn time and stabilizing heat output. Larger logs burn slower and create long-lasting coals, while smaller splits ignite quickly and raise temperature. Understanding that rhythm lets you adjust the stove like a throttle instead of guessing. In survival conditions, fuel isn't just comfort, it's time, safety, and energy security. And the way you stack a few pieces of wood can mean the difference between steady warmth and a cold restart at 3 a.m. The strange truth is that doubling your stove's effective heat isn't about buying a bigger model or burning more wood. It's about respecting the science hidden inside the flames. Control the air so gases finish burning. Use dry fuel so energy becomes heat instead of steam. Maintain an ash bed to stabilize combustion. Move air strategically so warmth spreads instead of pooling overhead. Manage draft so heat stays where you need it. Add thermal mass so the fire's effort lasts longer than the flames themselves. And once you start running your stove like this, the room changes. The cold edges disappear, the fire burns quieter, and the stack of firewood suddenly lasts longer than you expected, like you've discovered a secret setting no one bothered to explain. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources.